You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. Happy Little Friday to all those who celebrate. And wanted to get into a couple of different things here today. One, a little bit more big picture as far as the future of college sports marketability. But the first one I want to dive into here a little bit more local, as I want to get to something that maybe flies a little bit under the radar of most Texas Tech football fans, but certainly not under the radar of the program or prospective Red Raiders, as we are sort of in the midst of camp season. I think they've crossed a few off the list already. There's another one in a couple of days. And I also want to get into maybe how the emphasis on some of these camps and their importance or their urgency might have changed given the impact now of this transfer portal era. But first, can you kind of just set the table for us and let us know what's going down on the camp front this week? What's it all about? I know it's not for kids like me once upon a time to just come and get a free T-shirt and maybe a Spike Dykes autographed football. There's some actual serious football happening at these things as well, right?
Yeah, you know, there is that part still. If you just want to, if you're just a youngster, one, or if you're two, if you're a high school player that wants to go get coached up and all that, but then there's the phase that we'll kind of touch on here, that it serves a purpose for prospect and program that I think that our listeners would find interesting. But there's definitely the T-shirt and the I just want to go have fun, man. I just want to eat orange slices and run around on the field, component to it too. This has changed over the years. You used to have longer camps or much more maybe emphasis on the camp than there is now. There was also the controversy of like the satellite camp whenever you were trying to see these colleges kind of skirting the rules or trying to operate in the gray area. Like, hey, we're going to have there was all these rules, but you couldn't have a camp, within however many miles of your, or far away from your campus. And then it's like, well, my buddies at Sam Houston, who I know, he can host a camp and then we can go coach it. And then we can, and then a bunch of schools will be involved. And all these are is just recruiting, it's getting in front of college coaches. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, but the Texas Tech camp, how I think it's viewed as a tool, and this works both ways, from Texas Tech football to, hey man, I'm an offensive lineman and I play at, in the Metroplex and I think I'm good enough to go to college. I may be interested, whatever. Insert position, city here, wherever the player may reside. And I think that you try to get kids to come to your camp, especially ones that you may be interested in recruiting. And it doesn't mean that kids that show up to your camp have been invited or that you even know about them, but sometimes this is how you get on the radar. Like, so young man, come here. Where do you go to school? You look pretty good, and all this stuff. And then I think if it's kids that you're kind of on your radar, one, you invite them and you want to see how serious they are about you, and will they come out here and go to camp? And a lot of kids will go to 15 of these over the summer. They'll try to hit up every school they can to try to get as much exposure as possible. But like the Texas Tech part of it is why it's important to get you here at our camp is because I can go watch you play in the fall. I can go watch you practice on your high school campus in the spring. But when you come to my camp, I can coach you. I can measure you. I can test you. I can show you. It's almost like an unofficial visit, but in a way that we can actually work you out. Like we can, hey man, run a route. Hey man, our quarterback commits over here. You're a receiver, right? Why don't you go catch passes from him and let's see kind of what we've got here. Can you run the route tree? Whatever. I mean,
yeah.
I go back into some. I mean, Seth Dagey earned a scholarship based on what he did at a Texas Tech camp. I want to say Taylor Potts did. I remember Bront Bird, showing up at a camp, and he was somewhat unfamiliar to the staff. And like they were like, dude, you can play linebacker, you can play receiver, or like a tight end. And like you see these kids that show up to camp and they get a scholarship offer out of it. That's a best case scenario. But yeah, that it certainly serves a purpose, and that's kind of what's going. I mean, I've got an example from a school that I work for the Lubbock Cooper School District, part of my day job. Well, they just Michael Deaver is a young man that was a junior last year, entering in his senior year. He showed up to a Texas Tech camp last weekend, earned a scholarship offer. I think that the Tech staff liked him. Wasn't sure how fast he was, wasn't sure how tall he was, wasn't sure kind of what it would all look like. I think he showed up and I think ran a 4.5 and knocked their socks off. And I think he left the camp that day and they were like, we'd like to be in the Michael Deaver business if you're interested. And that's a recent example, a local example. But if he doesn't show up to the camp, maybe it's everybody's left wondering, and or maybe they take a chance. And, okay, we've seen enough on film, or whatever. But that's kind of what it's broken down my position. And you can have kickers. It doesn't matter the position. It's just like our people can get their hands on you and put you on their practice field or in their stadium and do the stuff that they're asking the guys that are already on the team that are doing, and just kind of see what it looks like. And it's a real life in your face evaluation, or it can be.
So Texas Tech has got 2 more high school camps to go, June 9th, June 16th. They've already got 2 in the rear view, and then some other camping opportunities for those not of that age just yet. But I'm kind of curious, in the portal era, I have like a big picture kind of question to where I would just simply ask, does every coaching staff in the country just pay less attention now to high school prospects than they did previously? It feels like it's really that way from a basketball perspective, but of course there's only 5 guys on the floor at a time for a basketball team. Hell of a lot different from a roster size for college football. So I don't know if it can really be that lopsided to just, kind of turn your back on the high school prospects to a degree. But compared to when you were covering this, many years ago, or even maybe just a few years ago, I wonder, big picture wise, how much has that changed? And, you mentioned satellite camps, like junior day events and things like that. Are these anywhere near as like a big a deal as they once were? Are they exactly the same? And maybe I'm just overstating the expectation. What do you make of the change or the impact that the portal era has had on some of these off-season events like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great conversation to have, because this is one of those things that the general fan doesn't know about, and some may not necessarily care. It's just like, let me know who's playing for my team. I'll root for them but this is part of the talent acquisition business that is college football that so many folks are fascinated by. And I think that Joey still has a heavy emphasis on these kinds of things, because this is going to always be, as long as he's here, there's going to be an emphasis on the high school recruiting. And that's where the bulk of your talent acquisition every year is going to come from. We know Joey and them are going to go portaling, but they're not going to major in it. They're going to, minor in it. And it's going to be kind of limited based on current guys on their team that have left or whatever it may be, but they still wanted to recruit a full high school class every year. So I think here, junior days and camps and things like that are still very valuable. It's not like that everywhere. You go look at, take for example, one school in your league, and then Another one that's done well, but like take TCU and Ole Miss, for example. They've, I think, chosen to, I don't know if I want to say major in the portal, but I think that's probably a safe statement to make. Junior days or camps at those institutions may not really matter a whole lot because they're not doling out scholarship offers and all those kinds of things because they're going to take the bulk of use their available resources and go get folks that are already in college and replenish that way. But
Chris, why do you think for like those programs, is it just the personality of the coach? Like, hey, I'm making the choice to do this. This is what I like. Are there like resources better geared toward that? Or why would some, in your estimation, make that decision to really go hard in that direction when maybe some others don't? First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite events again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app where you're going to find the best last-minute deals. And I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. And of course, it's always at the lowest price, guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that last beer at the tailgate at your own pace because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. They give you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast and easy, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Or why would some, in your estimation, make that decision to really go hard in that direction when maybe some others don't? Is it location? Kind of hard to believe for Texas Christian, but I don't know, maybe Oxford, Mississippi. But
I think it's just different. Everybody, manages, like in the NFL, everybody manages their salary cap differently. Some feel like you can give this much money to this position or this side of the ball, or I'm just not going to spend this much money and waste it or use it on this kind of player, whether it's old or young or this position or whatever. And I just think that, Sonny Dykes and Lane Kiffin, and those are just some examples because there's plenty of folks like that. They get a lot of highlights there. Whereas Joey is kind of, I don't want to say like opposite, but he's going to be at the other end of the spectrum there to where he just makes no bones about it. And he feels like that's the best way to run a program. One, to be fair, Joey's got time. He doesn't have to win right now. Like when Matt Wells was here a couple years ago, they really had no choice. It's like you could feel the pressure and you ended up going portaling. It's like, we're not going to take many high school kids. We got to win and win right now, or otherwise we're going to get shown the door. And it still happened. And they hit on a lot of those guys. I mean, it's not like Sonny's not in trouble. Lane's not in trouble, but that's also Joey's got the benefit of time. And I think he places a great, whereas I think Lane Kiffin maybe doesn't worry about it or trusts his own ability to manage it. Joey feels like that the high school player and then developing, and then we have a good NIL situation where we're not going to lose them because that's some fear. Why do I want to spend all my time recruiting a bunch of high school kids? I get them to the point where they're ready to go, and then they leave me for a better offer. Yeah. I think Joey feels like, okay, we've got the resources here to hold on to these guys. But I think Joey's big deal is like culture. I just don't think he feels like you can win and win sustaining it and all that via the mercenary. And look at like Sonny. You could say, hey, they did win and win big. They went to the college football playoff, but then look what happened the year after when a lot of those guys left. They couldn't sustain it. So, and Ole Miss is in the top 10 or 15, but you've beaten that same, portal king in a bowl game, right? With a very talented roster. And he had a bunch of guys that were not participating in that game, and you maybe took advantage there in Houston. So, but I to answer the question, I think Joey places a huge emphasis on the junior day, the camp, and just the evaluation process because they are trying to find every quality player, whether it be locally, regionally, in the state, in the Dakotas, in Louisiana, Oklahoma, whatever, and they're going to develop them and grow them up and then take care of them while they're here. And then hopefully they won't want to leave because they like it here so much. So But it's a fascinating question, and I think the answer is probably different at every institution.
There's probably a lot of different reasons.
Sure, you're all over. You run the gamut. Resource, pressure on the head coach, and like the time. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that could cause you to kind of lean into one way or lean into the other.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, when I reference Oxford, Mississippi versus Fort Worth, Texas, obviously the Southeast is a recruiting rich area as well, so that may not be that great of an example. But I was thinking, even from a geography perspective, if somewhere is like, man, our high school pool is pretty dang shallow, locally or across the state, relative to a Texas or a Florida or some places like that. So you might think I'm going shopping in the already been in college pool because these guys are not afraid to be on the move like that. So I'm sure there are many, many different reasons that would contribute to why you would make that kind of choice, I guess, one way or another. I have forgotten about the satellite camp issue. That used to be such a big deal. And you mentioned that, and it was like a blast from the past. Those still happen, right? Or do they? That was like such a huge conversation at one point in time.
I don't think they do. And I don't think there's really as much of a need for it anymore because of portal and unlimited transfer and because there's, as we are seeing, there's far fewer rules now than there was before. That was simply and it's funny, the sign of the times, because you used to not get a ton of news in the off season. And when you did have some sort of topic that kind of got people writing and talking and whatever, it carried the news cycle for further periods of the off season. And that was such a big deal. Whereas today, that's a Tuesday morning, and then we moved on to something else by Wednesday morning. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that had a shelf life of, it felt like weeks and months and years as it got tweaked and morphed, and coaches were like, well, okay, well, they tell me I can't do this. Well, we'll just do this. We'll just, and so.
Yeah, we'll go put our Sam Houston State T-shirt on. Yeah, you made a great reference there.
I mean, they did the, there was so many schools that would set up at a camp in East Texas. You just try to hit all your and get your staff there legally so you could sit there and evaluate and coach them and do all the things. But now, Rivals and all the other recruiting services, they also have combines and camps, and so much of it's on video and tape and heck, like Texas Tech, for example, they're recruiting off of track times as much as anything. Yeah. They don't necessarily need to. This is exactly the example I would give you on Michael Deaver. See, he's a high jumper. He didn't run a lot of that. So not sure how fast you are. We can't necessarily go all that way. When we get you on our camp, we can run you and test you. And we find out, oh, okay, you are a 4.5 guy. Well, then we're good to go. But had he already posted a 4.5 equivalent type track time in a track meet, maybe you don't even need to have him at camp. You're like, okay, this guy checks the boxes on what I need to see. But yeah, the whole satellite camp, it was, and Texas was they were at the forefront of it. Like you got state of Texas college coaches having camps in Louisiana.
Well, wasn't it seemed like, wasn't Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State making a bunch of hay off of that? Like, I feel like they were one of the ones that really was having success. Because
they would go have them in the Metroplex.
Yeah.
I think they'd have them in the Metroplex. They were and again, Gundy was, they were doing a good job. And people don't realize how close Stillwater, Oklahoma is in proximity to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, specifically parts of Dallas. It takes 2 to 2.5 hours to get from Dallas to Stillwater. Well, that's a lot closer than Lubbock, Texas. But anyway, they took advantage of some proximity and some rules and some things like that. But yeah, that's that.
Back when we had rules.
I know. Yes.
Once upon a time.
Right.
All right.
Memories.
Yeah, memories. Precious memories. And I'm not so sure that I miss the era of rules. I don't necessarily think that more of those are all that great all that often, but once upon a time, that's the way it was. And speaking of rules, let's wrap up the conversation with, I guess, one that is soon to be changed, or possibly soon to be changed. Logos on a field, logos on a jersey. We're talking corporate logos to wrap up our conversation. One of the more intriguing conversations recently during some conference meetings across the country centered around how athletic departments across college sports could be adding additional revenue, of course, in the wake of changes coming up in the near future now that the NCAA has laid out their framework for a settlement that will see revenue sharing introduced to college sports. Athletics departments are looking for more money. One of those potential avenues of adding revenue could come in the form of corporate sponsorship, Chris, whether on the jersey or on the field. That would require some rules to change as far as the NCAA is concerned. But has the rule already changed? Did I miss that? Or is this still just kind of in the wind as potentially changing? Do you think it's going to happen if not?
Okay, so I think that the field logo is either – that's very likely, and I think it's close to changing. I don't know if it's been stamped yet, but I think that could be in place by this next season.
Oh, okay.
If you want to go that route. I think the jersey part isn't as far along, but I think it's something that's coming. Okay, I think you're naive if you don't think that you're going to see that. And so what we're talking about here is that I think what they discussed is that you can now place a corporate logo, on your field for the sole basis of sponsorship. And you already have some of this because like AT&T, Jones AT&T Stadium, and they have the stadium rights. And I think that, and I'm not exactly sure if you have to have the stadium rights to have that space on the field or if it could be separated and exactly. But I think what they've talked about is there are some space on the 25-yard lines on each end of the field or in the center. And I think with revenue sharing in mind, I think some folks are going to tap into this, and maybe all or the majority of some will be. Yeah, we're not doing that. We're above that. We don't need to sell our field doesn't need to look like a NASCAR. But
I mean, Notre Dame was pissed off to have to put the ACC logo on their field at one point in time.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Very, very, very haughty of them.
Yeah. Hallowed grounds.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're saying that, I mean, there's some companies that are kind of synonymous with certain institutions based on, like whether it's like, say, like Buc-ee's or Bluebell with A&M, with like Dr. Pepper and Waco. I mean, could you get would AT&T obviously already has your stadium sponsorship, but I mean, would they maybe give you a little bit more if they could put more of a bigger logo on your field, maybe even at the 50-yard line? I don't know. I'm asking. Could you get a tortilla sponsor? I don't know. I don't know.
Tortilla. I was kind of thinking Jimmy's. I don't know.
See,
the scratch or not, but
put Jay's Salsa on there for all we care. Right. I mean, it's great salsa company once sponsored part of this podcast.
Double Eagle. I'm thinking Double Eagle maybe high on that list also.
Yeah, and there's lots of questions here, but I think that it's another way to generate revenue in a time where some institutions, and let's just be honest here, mostly in the Big 12 and ACC may have a need to generate some more money to kind of make up the gap and of the other two leagues. But then also you got this $20 to $22 million bill that you've got to revenue share. So somebody's going to do it. They're going to put some, company logo at midfield, and maybe they figure out a way to still have their brand and mesh them together to where it looks good. I don't know. Could you do this on a per game basis? Could you do it just for one game? I don't know, but somebody's going to tap into that because I would think that comes with a significant amount of money. And I think that you're looking for ways to generate. And I think that you're also going to get the logo on like what the NBA's doing. You're going to get a logo on the jersey, and somebody's going to buy the rights to that. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, and I'm not smart enough to understand how is that like, I'm not going to wear this logo. I'm not getting paid by insert company here. I don't know enough about how all that works. Maybe they're way. That's why that one is a bit further down the road and actually be coming to fruition. But yeah, this is something that I think is coming. And I don't know what's your midfield or at the 25s. What's that worth? I mean, what would somebody pay for that? Is that a million or two a season? Is the midfield worth $5 million a season? And is that worth?
You stay away from that midfield. Don't you dare! Don't you dare approach the 50-yard line.
Somebody's going to do it, man. Somebody is absolutely going to do it, and they're going to say, you don't want us to do this? Write us a check. Otherwise, we don't have a way to make it work. And maybe you're in the camp that we're like, we're not. How dare you suggest it? But I just, not everybody's got a Cody and a Dusty and some of the fine folks that are regents and well-to-do that are able to support this place financially. But other folks may not have that. So, but
damn you, Ed O'Bannon. You're going to we're finally going to get the double T back at the 50-yard line, get rid of this 3D sucker, and it's going to come with an Allsup's logo. I just know it. My dream will finally come true. No disrespect to Allsup's. By the way, we would go with the Guerrero tortilla brand. Mission, that's for the scraps. I just wanted to make that clear. I misspoke a moment ago. But yeah, I cringe at the NBA stuff, which they've tried to destroy their league for so long, I guess, just thinking China was going to keep their boat afloat, but America turned its back on it essentially. So I guess that's why they had to do it. But it's so Euro trash to see all that on that beautiful Dallas Mavericks jersey or something like that. I mean, leave it to the leagues that don't make money, like the WNBA, to be covered up in sponsorship.
And those leagues are just crushing it with money too. I mean, I just saw. I mean, it reported in the last day or so the NBA is about to sign a $7.6 billion new TV, agreement and all these things. And I'm just like, but
TV never learns.
But rich people want more money too, and so if there's space to sell or whatever, then by all means, sure. I'll sell.
I just got to say this: it better not clash with that red and black. I mean, have you seen the Loves jersey on the Oklahoma City or logo on the Oklahoma City jerseys? Which those jerseys are total trash anyway, so I don't guess it matters. It might actually spruce it up a bit, but can we, for the love of God, at least get a color combination that will fit in to scarlet and black? I mean, I don't know. What am I talking about? We did have a blue / kind of helmet once upon a time without any corporate sponsorship. So you never know. But yeah, it's going to happen, isn't it? It's going to happen. If we haven't already seen this officially changed as you're listening to this conversation.
It's pro sports. And this is what happens in the professional ranks. Everything's for sale. You're trying to make ends meet. And now you got bigger bills due than you've ever had before, really. So this is something, I mean, we see special seating now being made available at Big 12 basketball games. It's been talked about. Space on the court, space on a field, space on a jersey. I mean, it's going to become the norm because it's about, being able to pay your bills.
Yeah, the Hollywood seating on the floor between the scorer's table and the bench at Big 12 basketball games, maybe a conversation for another day. But if you want to go Larry David tripping Shaquille O'Neal in an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, that's the seat for you. If you just wanted to get nearer and dearer to Chris Level, then that is the seat for you. And let me tell you, that is an expensive seat. I've had to pay for this one with my soul. Also a different episode, so I won't get too deep into that conversation here today. Man, appreciate the insight on a variety of fronts. We went from camps to flour tortillas and many things in between. So you never know what you're going to get. Enjoyed it as always, Chris. Thanks for the time.
Happy Thursday, people. Enjoyed it. Keep hope alive.
And make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for being out there. And remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to comment anything below on YouTube. Appreciate those that do daily. And we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.